Hi, I'm Rob Webb, founder of Nonprofit Campaigns, and welcome to this week's episode of our live forum on fundraising, otherwise known as everything you wanted to know about fundraising but were afraid to ask. This week, our special guest, very special guest, is Teresa Huff. Say aloha, Teresa.
Aloha.
Aloha, because I'm actually in Hawaii. That's why we say aloha. I am streaming live from my lanai, and if I widen up the view here a little bit, you can see I picked some hibiscus flowers here for you, Teresa. So there's
nice.
Flowers for everybody in the room.
Love
and I'm going to come back to this view for a minute. Maybe we'll go back.
I think one of these times we need to have a live summit with you.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be so much fun. So today's show is called 5 Ways to Prepare Your Nonprofit for Grant Readiness. And I'm going to go back to that view there. That way you can see a little bit of my palm tree. I took this picture here, this on West Maui. I want to welcome everybody that is watching. You are either on Facebook, where you can participate in the live chat, or you are on LinkedIn, where you can participate in the live chat. And either place, we'd love to hear from you. So I will ask that anybody that is watching us live, hit the like button, hit the love button, hit the wow button if we say something cool. Don't hit the angry button or any of those buttons. And go into the live chat. Introduce yourself. Introduce your nonprofit. Tell us all about you. And we're going to be answering all of your questions here in the live chat. And I'm excited. We're going to have a good show today. How are you? Are you ready to rock and roll, Teresa?
Yes, I am. I am ready to do this.
We're going to give it a couple of minutes for people to join the room. It's interesting. Now, this is a new thing for us to stream live on LinkedIn. And last week we did a tester on it. And we had, we had a few people watching on LinkedIn. It's interesting. I sent out invitations on Facebook to everybody that in our universe and invitations on LinkedIn to everybody in our universe. We got about 20 RSVPs for this live forum on Facebook and got 50 on LinkedIn. So who knows? Maybe LinkedIn is going to be the new place. And while you guys are signing on, don't forget to let us know your name. Let us know about your nonprofit. I'll switch over here to the live chat. Heather Yvonne is in the room, and she's the founder of Chance for Success street newspaper in Tucson, Arizona. Heather is a member of our 6-week masterclass to achieve amazing fundraising results. Yesterday was class number 2 of the 6 weeks. And Linda Lysakowski, our resident trainer and advanced certified fundraising executive, gave a very compelling and interesting performance yesterday and on our masterclass, talking all about how to create a development plan that does not sit on the shelf collecting dust. And so it was a pretty exciting one. We are planning a new 6-week masterclass because we're having so much fun. We think we need to do one more before the end of the year because you guys want to finish your 2021 year-end fundraising efforts off with a bang, and you want to come in to 2022. We're swinging for the fences in 2022, and we're gonna finish off 2021 with a bang. So while we say hi to some of the people that are in the room, Maisie May is in the room, and she's the founder of Fundual Bulldogs in Rescue. And Maisie is our Bulldog Rescue nonprofit. Thank you. Heather is our street newspaper. Do you know what a street newspaper is, Teresa?
No, I can't say that I do, but I'm curious.
We're going to tell you a street newspaper. I found out too when I met Heather and she joined our masterclass. A street newspaper is kind of a thing going on all over the United States, and it is run by and for the homeless community. They're actually the ones that are writing the articles and selling the newspapers and getting the advertising. And we're going to very soon have a Chance for Success street newspaper in Tucson, Arizona. Heather, God bless her, is really dedicated to this cause. Talks a lot worldwide, not just here in the United States. Thank you, Heather. We also have Naomi Kurland in the room. Hello, I'm the executive director of Longmont Food Rescue. So we have Longmont Food Rescue, we have Bulldogs, we have Heather, Chance for Success. I know there's more of you in there, so go ahead as you come in and let us know what you see, what your nonprofit is. Tell us about you. Tell us where you're from. And don't forget to hit the like and the love buttons here and let us know what you think of this week's live forum on fundraising. Whew, I think I'm done with commercials for a while. Are we ready to get rock and roll?
Well, I don't know if I can keep up with all that, but you bet. Let's
oh
do
my
it.
Gosh, we put the fun in fundraising, Teresa. So this is, hang on tight. We are going to have a great time. So before we get started, tell us a little bit about you, Teresa. Tell us how you got started in this amazing nonprofit industry.
Sure. Well, and it's funny you say we have fun, because one of the things I often say is, who says grant writing has to be boring? Not me. I think it can be a lot of fun, and it can actually be really interesting and challenging. So it's all in how you look at it and all in how you go about it.
Thank you. I am looking forward to having fun in grant writing, because I must tell you that I have written a few grants, and it's usually I've got, it's like I got a gun to my head. It's like that Blazing Saddles movie or something. Like I didn't really, wasn't my favorite thing to do. And we talked about this. I'm an extrovert. Which means I love to get out and do this stuff online. I love to ask people for money in person. And you said that you're an introvert, right? Is that the case?
Yes.
And
yes, I'm happy behind the scenes doing my little thing on my laptop. I can impact a whole community from home. So yes, I'm good with that.
And so we're going to bring out the extrovert in Teresa, and she's going to teach me how to be an introvert and prepare for these grant writing functions. Now, grant writing is
we'll balance out.
Yeah, well, it's an important part. I'm going to look at some of these people are saying stuff to us. So I'm going to, Maisie May said, we are not a rescue. Our mission is to help pay for medical needs for bulldogs in rescue. The average bulldog comes into rescue, costs the rescue to $2,500 in vet bills, and sometimes more. And we also have Kimberly Barker in the room. Kimberly is from Barbados, and she's with Hopeful Handbags Global. Kimberly is right now in the planning stages of creating one of our Fundual campaigns. And I got to we're going to do a commercial later on. We'll do a quick video of what Fundual is. Heather said the same thing with her. She doesn't like to be in front of people. You're going to teach us extroverts how to write grants, and we're going to be teaching the introverts here how it's okay to ask for money and get in front of people. And
fair enough.
All right, are you ready? So let's get into this real quick. By the way, where are you located, Teresa?
I am in Southwest Missouri, and you asked a little about my background. I guess I didn't get into that. Do you want me to give a quick recap? I started as a special ed teacher out of college. And so I taught special ed, middle school special ed for a while. And then when we started our family, I really wanted to stay home with our kids. But I also still wanted to use our degree, but my college degrees, but I was leaving a salary. And so I wanted to help supplement our family's income. And I heard of a lady nearby who did grant writing. And I asked her if she would meet for coffee. And she said, sure. So we visited for a while. And at the end of our meeting, she said, I'm looking to add a couple people to my team. If you're interested, I'd love to have you. So I jumped at the chance, and I worked with her for a couple of years. And that was an amazing way to jump right into it. And I learned so much from her. She became a great mentor and friend. And that was really how I got into it. And then when we moved away, I branched out on my own and started doing consulting work. And there were so many things that I wish I had known, and I wish I still had her nearby to call her up and ask all the business side of things. And how do you set up this? How do you handle that with a client? So that's kind of why, after doing that on my own for about 15 years, I decided, I could be teaching this to other people. I can't write all the grants for all the great causes, but I can now help other grant writers take my teaching skills, my grant writing background, all the things I learned the hard way, and then help them be able to build their skills in grant writing and take that step by step and realize it's not so intimidating. It doesn't have to be hard, and you can make a bigger difference. So then we can create a much bigger ripple effect that way. So that's kind of how it all came about.
Yeah, I don't know that I'm going to put that down for a second. I'm going to put that now. That was a teaser. We've got a little image that we're going to be putting up in a second. I got to tell you, so many people said they were interested in watching this show. You say prepare for grant writing, and it seems nonprofits out there, that a lot of our clients, they're really overly focused, in my opinion, on two things. One, they have too many special events, and and special events cost a lot of time, and they cost a lot of money, and kind of tends to burn out your volunteers. And the other thing that I see them sometimes overly focused on foundations and writing grants and expecting grants to be the end all be all for everything that they do. I'm going to switch to, I've got an image here I'm going to put up, and then we're going to put your image up, because
I sent you some smaller ones too.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get to those and load them right now, because I'm not a multitasker here. Once I start talking, I'm not really good. When you look, this is kind of an old slide from 2016. Some of you that have been in the group for a minute, you've seen this once or twice. This is where the charitable dollars come from in the United States. Now, in 2020, the last time we did this, the foundation dollars went up a little bit, and so it's a little, maybe about 16% or something like that in the total scheme of things. And I say that's probably because these foundations, the stock market was good. These foundations had a good year. God bless them. They rose to the occasion here, and were able to help a lot of nonprofits in 2020 during a pandemic that needed. Not surprisingly, corporate gifts went down in 2020. And those corporate gifts are usually looking, they're not writing off anything. A corporation, if they make a charitable contribution, so to speak, it's really coming out of their marketing budget, and they're looking for a return on investment as for their sponsorship. If you take the 72% in the red, it says individuals, and I believe the 72% in this 8% should be merged, because bequests over here, that little 8% slice of the pie, is all coming from individuals. And when we look at the pyramid of giving, these are all the different activities that we do on a regular basis to raise money. And online giving is important. We talk a lot about that here on the show. Social media campaigns and direct mail campaigns. We talked a lot about direct mail in the masterclass yesterday. Benefits and special events, while that's focused on individuals for the most part, the nonprofits in 2020 that were overly reliant on special events took it hard. Obviously, we didn't have a lot of events going on. And of course, virtual events became a new thing, and they've been around for a while, but they became a big thing during the pandemic. But those are all these things. And of course, our high impact annual campaign is the top of the heap for annual giving, and does include, as you get into the middle part of this pyramid, it does include major gifts, and it does include businesses that give, because when we talk about corporate giving, we don't necessarily, we're leaving out an awful lot of sole proprietors and businesses that need to get involved. Our job as fundraisers is to take them through this pyramid of giving. And one of the things that I don't really see in this pyramid is grant writing. And so grant writing, while it's important, we don't want to be overly reliant on grant writing. And there's certainly things that we can do as nonprofits to prepare ourselves for that, right?
Definitely. Yes. And if you jump into it too soon.
Time to go into your slide right here.
Sure. Yeah. If you jump into grants too soon, it can actually do more harm than good. A lot of people think we need to just get right into grants immediately, but really there's some foundational work that needs to happen first in order to be more successful long term. It's kind of like when you're building a house, what kind of foundation are you going to put down? And that's going to determine the success of your house, how long it's going to last, and how solid it's going to be. So it's the same way with your grant strategy.
Let's talk about these 5 things that are going to prepare these nonprofits. That's what everybody's tuned in to. Then they're going to be hitting that love button and the like button and really getting involved on there. And I apologize for this slide. She sent me a JPEG, you sent me a PDF that I couldn't load into StreamYard. It only likes JPEGs and short videos. And then we made it into a JPEG and it turned into this skinny thing. So here's what we're going to do. We'll take the skinny thing off for right now. And we're going to send anybody and everybody that wants it a copy of your PDF handout. Now you have a PDF handout that we can email you. To do that, we need your email. And so there's 3 ways you can do that. You can put your email in the chat. And if you are a person that doesn't want to put your email in the chat because other chatters might be seeing your email, go ahead and just send me a private message or a direct message. You can send Teresa a message as well here on Facebook or LinkedIn or something like that. We'll get a chance to get that to you.
And actually, I have it available as a download if that's easier too, at teresahuff.com/checkup. And you can go there and
there you go. You can get the download at teresahuff.com. That's how we get a hold of you. And it's /checkup. All right. Thank you. So let's get right down to business. These people, oh, there's more. Oh my gosh, I'm missing 5 comments here in the chat. Let's see. Karen Long. Please send me a PDF, and there's her email. Thank you, Karen. Philip Poston sent that in there. He's ready for that. Heather wants it. I have Heather's email. We'll get a chance to send that to you. Philip Poston comes in and says, I'm Phil with Charity Check, a web-based client management system for nonprofits that assists with needs. It also allows networking to avoid duplication. Interested in this seminar and see if there's anything that he can recommend to his viewers. I guarantee you're going to want to recommend a lot of this stuff to the viewers. And Heather says, I know that grant writing is an essential part of being a nonprofit. You are absolutely correct. It is an essential part. Let's see. We also have Chris Ortiz, and Chris is the CEO of Hopar's Christian Family Center in Rochester, New York. So we have New York in the house. We had, who is it? Hart. I don't know if Hart's in the room. He's also right up there with you in upstate New York. One of our masterclass members. And Chris operates a food pantry, pastoral counseling center, and a child care center. Our mission is to help families stay together when times are difficult, and they help meet physical and counseling needs. God bless you, Chris. We appreciate you having you in the room. Whew. Okay, we're caught up here. Go ahead, throw it at us. What is the first thing that we can do that our viewers can learn today to prepare themselves to be grant ready?
Well, first of all, it might seem obvious, but a lot of nonprofits don't understand, especially new ones, is you need to have your 501c3 status in place first. And that doesn't necessarily mean you've just filed the paperwork or you're going to start a nonprofit or you're thinking about it. So let's get a grant to pay for it. That's not what grants are for. Funders don't want to be your first dollar or your only dollar. Like Rob was saying with that pie shape, grants shouldn't be a big piece of the pie, and they come much later than what most people typically think. So you need to have your 501c3 status and ideally even be up and running for a couple of years before you start applying for grants. You need to build a track record. You need to have that going, and you need to have all that foundation that we talked about in place before you start going for grants themselves.
Now, that's going to bum out some of the people here. I know they think grant writing is, writing grants is the savior to everything that they do. But you need to have your 501c3 in place. And there is other fundraising you can do before your 501c3 is in place. And you can raise money from individuals and get gifts. You need to tell them and be upfront and honest with them where you're at. And so that your startup funding is not necessarily going to come from grants, right, Teresa?
Exactly. Right. And that's a common myth, but it's very true. And you'll be better long term if you do have other sources of funding, because if you do get a grant and it goes away, then what? You're out of money. What are you going to do? So you need to have that other consistent source of funding, which brings me to the next point is you need to have multiple funding sources. And actually, I was talking to a group today earlier about this, and one lady asked, well, what does that mean? What do you mean? What could be multiple funding sources? And that could look like a lot of different things. It could be that pie chart that you said. It could be individual donors, it could be corporate sponsors. Another thing that is often overlooked is in-kind support. Sometimes businesses will donate supplies or equipment. People will volunteer their time. There's a lot of other ways to diversify, but the more consistent, diverse income sources you can have, it's just like your stock portfolio. You don't want to put all your money in one stock. You want to diversify a little bit to spread out that risk. So it's the same way with your nonprofit income. You want to diversify to where you're bringing in income from different sources. And that way, if something happens with one area, you're not completely out of money. You've still got those other sources to offset and balance it out.
So multiple sources of income is and multiple funding sources. Gosh, we hear that so much, everybody. We need multiple sources of income. I have learned that many different ways over the years. You get all your eggs in one basket, and if all your eggs break in that, that's not good.
It's painful.
You have them in multiple baskets, right?
Exactly.
All right, so we've got the first one is you got to have your 501c3. The second one, you want to have multiple sources of income. Let's go into the third of these five. We might have more than five today, huh?
I don't know. We'll just keep chatting as long as we need to.
Okay, what's the third
everything we come up with? Yes, the next one, and this is another one that's a common misconception, but you need to be serving clients. The funders want to see what kind of impact you're making in the community. And is this a cause that we want to support? They're looking for a return on impact. Just like in the business world, you want a return on your investment. They're looking for the same ROI, just with that impact twist to it. So they want to see, are you serving clients? What kind of impact are you making for those clients? And what kind of change have you been seeing in your program? So it's kind of a balance between showing the impact you're making, but also showing that there's still a big need. And here's how you can help us meet that need with this funding.
So what I'm hearing is we need to have, of course, we got to be established. We got to be serving people. We've got to be doing a lot of things. It seems like the foundations, and we're talking probably mostly private foundations, when we're family foundations and private foundations. Some of them are national, some of them are regional, some of them are local. We're not talking about government grants right now too much, are we?
Right. Especially if you're new to the grant world, I recommend starting with the smaller foundations, especially your local ones, because when you build those relationships, those are the ones that you can start building over time and sometimes get the continuous year after year grants from those especially. So I would start small, and yes, start with the foundation grants. Don't worry about federal right now if you've never applied for grants.
And it's one of the things that it seems that frustrates a lot of nonprofit is it seems like the foundations are, yes, they're program specific. They want to fund certain programs. They don't like funding overhead. Sometimes they don't like paying salaries, right?
That's pretty common. And sometimes, yes.
And so we've got to have a system in place before we think, boy, these grants are going to go out there and save us. We've got to have a system in place to be serving people and have a way to pay for that overhead, to pay for the salaries. I know it's frustrating sometimes when people, but this grant doesn't want to pay for my salaries, and then everything I got is salaries. How else do I serve our mission and do that stuff, right?
Right. It's tough. Yeah. And that's where your pyramid of the other funding sources comes into play, and showing that impact by donating. You're enabling this program to happen, and you're going to make this impact. So that's where the donors and the other sources really come in. And then you can approach the grant funders and say, look what we've already been doing. Will you come in and be a part of it with us to help us grow it?
Now, talk to me about, it seems to me that we've got 2 more of your 5. I haven't forgot yet. We're at number 3 right now. Got to be serving people before you start writing these grants. And it seems like part of the challenge is figuring out where to submit grants and where to find these foundations, right?
Yes,
I'm going to ask it. And by the way, get ready to ask questions. The first half of this show is we're going to talk about these 5 ways. And the second half, 30 minutes of this show, we want you guys to be asking the questions. Heather and Philip and Karen and Kimberly, and I forgot who else is in there. So get your questions ready, right? All right. So I'm going to go back to this one. Finding the foundation that you're going to be writing the grant for seems like it's, probably might be tougher than the actual grant writing part itself, right?
It can. It's a big piece of it. And really, if you lay this groundwork up front to get all the pieces in place and make sure you're ready for grants, and you've identified funders that are a good match for the work you're doing and your mission and the work they want to help in their mission, when you match those up properly, then that's when it really comes together, and that can become a powerful fit. It's when people just kind of go off with a shotgun approach of, well, there's a grant open, let's apply left and right to whatever we can find. That's when it falls apart. You're going to crash and burn. So you need to find the good fit.
Yeah, and that shotgun approach, I have seen many nonprofits see an opportunity of a big grant, and they almost twist their mission to fit the grant versus finding the grant that fits the mission.
Yes,
do you see nonprofits doing that in your experience, Teresa?
Yes, unfortunately, I see them try. And that's where they need to let go of that and really evaluate. If we find the ones that are the best fit, that's where we can build those stronger relationships long term. If they go twisting their mission out of shape for each grant, their mission's going to get lost in the shuffle. It's really going to muddy it down. And then it's also going to hurt their other donor base, because people are going to be confused. What are they doing? What am I supporting here? Are they working on this or that? And it's also going to spread their staff and volunteers too thin, because they're going too many directions without a focus. So I would even back up first and really recommend starting with a strategic plan, because then that's going to drive those other pieces, and it's going to help you figure out what's our focus and what grants do we need to be looking for. And you can identify those when you do find them.
And I thank you for saying that. A strategic plan or a development plan or a fundraising plan is super important. And it doesn't have to be, we talked about this for almost 2 hours yesterday in our master class. And it doesn't have to be this long, drawn out, complicated plan. It could be 1 or 2 pieces of paper, but basically we've got a plan in place. And with a fundraising plan, a strategic plan, now we are going to focus on an end game. And so that shotgun approach, not only for grant writing, but sometimes you'll have volunteers or board members sit down and say, gosh, the Boys and Girls Club over here just did a golf tournament and raised a whole bunch of money. And we got to do a golf tournament. And if it's not in your plan, you can at least sit back and say, well, first of all, you got to look back and say, yeah, but how long has the Boys and Girls Club been doing that golf tournament? They've been established here in town for 50 years, and they've been doing it for 50 years, and they've got all the pieces of, that it makes sense, and it's part of their strategic plan. It's not necessarily part of your strategic plan. So when you have a plan, then you can at least look at your board members and say, okay, this is our plan. This is what we said we're going to do this year. If we're going to deviate from that plan, what are we going to take off so we can add something new to the plan? Whew, good stuff.
Yeah, and that gives a good basis for making those decisions, kind of a filter for those opportunities that come in. Is this in alignment with our plan, or is this way too far off? Or like you said, should we trade out because this is an opportunity that we need to jump on, but something else has to give, since we can't do all the things right now like we want to.
One of the things we talk about, and thank you, I see the questions coming in. We're going to get to those questions here in just a couple of minutes. One of the things we teach in fundraising and is a staple here at Nonprofit Campaigns with all of our clients that we train is that you need to develop a relationship with donors or potential donors before you ask for a gift. And you don't want to be that friend that you just meet, that just meets you and asks you for $20 so they could get home, right? And put their gas tank in, right? Once I know you a little bit and we've got a relationship and we develop that friendship, then you can ask me for money, but don't be, not the first thing. Is it important to develop relationships with the foundations and the staff at these foundations?
Yes, definitely. And that's really over time how you can do that. And there are a lot of things you can do to be proactive about that. Like if you're awarded a grant, just sending a thank you note and then sending updates, even when they don't ask for it. Send a follow-up or send a picture of, hey, I thought you might enjoy seeing the kids using this new equipment that you funded. Something unprompted. Just be proactive in communication. If something's getting off track with the grant, call them, let them know. Don't be afraid to talk to them. Don't try to hide it. Just let them know what's happening and they'll work with you. Usually they're very understanding and they're very willing to brainstorm and help you through the process. They want you to succeed. Yep. And they're there to support you through it.
And I think so many of the staff of these foundations and their board members, right? Remember, all these foundations have a board of directors, just like your nonprofit, making sure that they're doing the right things and overseeing what's going on with the organization. I think during 2020, so many of these foundations just did a really good job of bending over backwards to accommodate and help their clients are you, the nonprofit, right? And they said, look, we realize this is a tough time. You can't do this, you can't do that. And we want to continue funding so you don't go broke during this pandemic, and then we can get back to that. And I was really impressed to see a lot of those foundations show their heart a little bit in that. Changing rules and making it up as they go a little bit, right?
Right. They really rolled with it. And it was nice to see that they were quicker with some of the grant making process in a lot of the pandemic, and they knew people needed funds right away. They knew it was urgent. And so they really lightened up on some of those requirements and hoops to jump through. So I'll be interested to see if the trend shifts back or if they stay a little bit more open to some of that, because I think it also showed them that, okay, we can trust nonprofits to use the money wisely and to take this, even though the process was quicker and a little more open-ended, they used it well. They implemented well. So I'm hoping that some of the foundations will start to pick up on that and maybe make it a little less stringent.
Excellent stuff. Okay, so let's get back to our 5 ways that we're going to all of our viewers are going to prepare their nonprofits for grant readiness. We've talked about being established, having your 501c3. That means you got a board of directors too, right? And
yes, exactly.
Of course, you need multiple funding sources. You're not going to be, and you've got to be serving people before we go out and start writing these grants, right? We're just not going to be like, we have this idea and we're going to write grants to make the idea into a program. What's the 4th one?
Right. The next one, we kind of touched on this earlier, but I want to make sure it's a little more highlighted, is just longevity. How long have you been actually serving clients? And ideally, at least a couple of years before you start applying for grants. If you have a local foundation that you already have a relationship with, you might be able to get something a little quicker, but I wouldn't rush it, because grants are a long process anyway. And you still, like you said, we need to be building up those other funding sources also. So be doing that first, because grants do require a lot of reporting and implementation. It takes a lot of staff time to actually use the grant and do it well and put the program into place. So it's important to make sure you have the program stable before you add a grant responsibility on top of that.
Now that's an interesting point that you made, and I want to unpack that a little bit. They want longevity in your organization. Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I think they want to see that you're around to stay. You're in it for the long haul, and that you have this program that's not just going to be a pop-up shop that's going to go away next week. They want to know that you're in it.
Yeah, and I'd love to see the stats of how many new nonprofits are founded each year and how many of them are around 5 years later. I mean, that would be a really interesting stat, because I know there's a lot of founders that mean well, and they go out and they form a nonprofit really not quite understanding what it is they're getting themselves into. I don't think that they realize they need an engaged board of directors that has oversight over the nonprofit. I've talked to so many nonprofit founders to say, I don't want a big board. I want a small board so they won't fire me. And I'm here to say that these laws in the United States were set up the way they are. These board members have a fiduciary and legal responsibility over your organization and the activities of the founder or the executive director. And quite frankly, if you're not doing something that's legit and doing something that might be a little unethical, they should fire you.
Right.
Okay.
I've heard that concern too. And really, if they have that mindset and they want to be in charge and the sole person, maybe they need to consider a business instead of a nonprofit, because a nonprofit is more of that board operated. It's not one person. I've had people say that too, about maybe the board is just them and their spouse and a best friend, and that's all, because they don't trust anybody else to come on. They think people are just going to come in and take over everything. But really, if you find board members that appreciate your mission and want to help be a part of that and a part of what you do, they're going to help grow it, and it becomes more strategic, and it gives you more resources to be able to use to tap into to grow. It gives you a bigger donor base and more connections in the community to help find those donors.
Awesome. Thank you very much. We'll talk more about board. Naomi Kurland asked a tip for board recruitment and retention. We're going to hopefully get into that. By the way, it just so happens that we do this every week, Naomi. Every Thursday, we have a new guest. We talk about a new subject, and we have talked board recruitment. And so there are past episodes you can watch on our Facebook group. If you haven't joined, I even have an image here, by the way. If you haven't joined our Facebook group, this is where all the fun happens. It is called Nonprofit Campaigns Community - Inspiring Fundraising Success. I don't know if you have to do it right now, but please, if you're watching this show from LinkedIn or Facebook, go ahead and you're serious about learning this stuff and doing it right. Join our Nonprofit Campaigns community. We have over 500 nonprofit professionals in there asking questions and answering questions and helping everybody. It's a great place. Also, it just so happens that we have about 12 or 13 online training courses on our website, many of which are dedicated to boards and fundraising. And of course, we're in the middle of the 6-week masterclass, right? So this masterclass, and you're going to come speak to our masterclass at some time, give them some tips on grant writing, right?
Yes.
Yes,
right. You bet.
So we talked about longevity and and you need to be serving people and multiple sources of income. Let's go to the number 5, and then we're going to start answering these people's questions.
All right. Well, the last one is not on the infographic. So those of you watching get a bonus tip that's not on there. The last one is to get your house. Get your house in order. So make sure you have your paperwork in order and labeled and handy, so that you're not chasing down or your 501c3 approval letter. Where did I put that? That's important. You need to have that handy, because just about every grant application is going to ask for that. You need your budget. You need all those types of things. You need a list of your board members. And if you can have that type of stuff in order, labeled, professional, all with your branding, your logo in advance, then when it's time to write a grant, you're not adding that workload and scrambling to find that on top of writing the grant. So get your house in order.
Seems to me the first grant's the toughest.
It could be.
Am I right?
And I know.
Well, I mean, that's because your first one, you're putting all this
be.
together. And then like I said, I've written grants a few times, and I've, the other ones have been a little more, okay, I can use cut and paste from this one to put it here. And but having all that original stuff is probably the toughest grant
right. It does take time. And sometimes it's worthwhile. I know you've talked about building a case for support. And so when I help a client with that, then that gives them a good framework and a template then they can pull from. Grants are not cookie cutters, so I don't want to imply that, but you can pull that information from that central place to be able to use that much more quickly. And then that way, each person on your team is using the same information, is giving the same messages to everyone that they talk to.
All right, good stuff. Thank you, Teresa. I'm enjoying this. And Philip just posted in the room and it says, FYI, the LinkedIn video did not appear to be working. Ugh. So if there's anybody watching on LinkedIn and it is working, let me know. If you're watching from maybe everybody's just here from Facebook and we're not getting anybody from LinkedIn. That would be a bummer. But if you are, let me know. Now I'm going to go through some of these questions. I'm going through. Heather in Tucson said, I had a grant writer tell me if I paid them a high fee, they could get me some grants. What do you tell people about these type of people? That's when we talk about ethics, you guys we all have this ethical laws that we subscribe to. If you're a member of the AFP, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, we all subscribe to a code of ethics. But sometimes there are consultants out there and grant writers that will promise the moon and not deliver a star.
Right. Yes. And I would be careful. Look at what is included with that. And are they guaranteeing funding? Or, what's the level of commitment there? Because grants are not guaranteed. Even if you get a grant year after year, something could still happen with the funder. And maybe next year it's not guaranteed. So I would really be careful about that and look at what kind of payment is that. Stay away from percentage-based type payments.
Thank you.
And like Rob said, stick with the code of ethics and look for grant writers that stay within those guidelines.
Yeah, that's another important one because a lot of nonprofits are saying, well, I'll pay this person a percentage of what they raise. So we're going to assure that this person is, valuable because, we'll just pay them a percentage of the income coming in. Mm-hmm. Foundations don't allow that, do they?
Right. They really frown on that, especially the big issue is the grant writing happens before the grant award. So if you try to pay the grant writer out of that award, you're paying for fundraising, which grants don't fund, and you're paying for something that happened months before, because grants usually take months to determine, sometimes even a year or longer. So it would be a retroactive work that you're trying to pull that money out and pay for something that happened months ago. So it's not a good idea. And if you get the right grant writer, if you get someone that is good and knows what they're doing, the work they do is going to be incredibly valuable to you. Whether or not you win that grant, that work is going to be valuable. And you can still use that for other things. The project you did, they're going to be helping you with the strategy and developing the program itself, not just writing a grant. So if you get the right grant writer, then your money will be well spent, whether or not you win that grant.
Okay, good stuff. And so there is no guarantee. There's no magic bullet in this. We've got best practices that we follow. I'm wondering if there's a statistic. I mean, grants are pretty competitive, right? I mean, there's a lot of people writing and applying for grants. I mean, is there any statistic out there about what percentages of the grants that grant writers write are actually funded?
It really varies a lot depending on the grant. Like federal grants are incredibly competitive. There may be 500 applications that come in and they only fund 30 or less. So it really depends. And some of the local foundations aren't going to be quite as competitive, but it still depends. They can't fund them all. So I did actually a podcast episode on this a while back that a grant writer success rate is actually not the best metric to use. It's more about what kinds of programs have they developed, how much money have they raised through grant writing, that type of thing. Look at their track record of work as opposed to a success rate, because grants, like we said, money could run out. A funder could decide to pull the program, which I've had that happen as well. We were told, yes, it's still going through, go ahead and apply. There's still some things up in the air, but it's looking pretty sure. So we applied, we were down to the final round, and then they just cut the whole program entirely. And so that was really frustrating.
And you made an important point that grant money is typically finite, right? You made this earlier.
Right.
Typically, you don't see foundations funding the same organizations over and over and over for multiple years down the road. They'll move on and try to spread it around a little bit, right?
It depends. Some want to spread it around, and some want to build that relationship and see that each year they're helping grow this program stronger and stronger. So it really just depends. It could go either way.
All right. So now Naomi has a question in here, and I think we talked about it a little bit, but let's get let's dive deep into this. How do you find general operating grants and approach securing those funds? As you mentioned, many grants want to fund programs only, but these programs need staff, infrastructure. So general operating funding is really where we most often need support to execute our programs. Wow. And I hear this so much.
Yes.
Go for it, Teresa. What do you think?
Well, yeah. Well, first of all, I'll just tell you that's a common tug of war. I feel your pain. I see nonprofits with that struggle all the time. And there are a few operating grants, but it's hard to come by. They're really hard to find. One thing that you can do to kind of help offset some of those operating expenses is that if the funder allows it, and each funder is different, but if a funder will allow it, say you're applying to help with your program, but you know that part of the staff member's time is going to be spent implementing that program. Say it's 20 hours a week. So you incorporate into the grant a part of their salary or a part of your operating expenses that are directly related to implementing that program. So you can work a portion of your operating expenses into the grant if it's tied to that program itself. You might not be able to just say, hey, can you fund our new administrative assistant, or can you fund our new director of something? But you can justify it if it's tied directly to your program, and your program has to be tied directly to the need that you presented. So it all has to tie together and it all has to make sense. It's like a puzzle. So you fit it all together in the proposal to where it makes sense. You need to be able to justify it.
Wow, good stuff. Thank you, Teresa. I appreciate that. One of the things, if I had a magic wand, looking around, I don't have one here, but if I did have a magic wand, one of the things that I would be waving it at every foundation and say, please offer more capacity building grants for these organizations.
Yes.
And of course, hire me as your consultant once you get that capacity building grant to go out and rather than it's that old thing, rather than feed a person a fish, you want to teach them fish so they can feed themselves for the rest of their lives. How many of these nonprofit foundations that are providing grants, how many of them that you see are providing capacity building grants so nonprofits can grow and thrive?
I think I cut out for a second there. Sorry.
Oh, did you hear what building? I said there? Yeah. How many?
I heard a bit about capacity.
Yes. Well, I want them all to give capacity building grants, and of course, say hire Rob Webb and Nonprofit Campaigns to go out and build that capacity within your organization. Now, the second part of that they may not do, but how many of these guys, and how do we convince foundations that capacity building grants are important? And how many of them
that
provide?
Is a big paradigm shift. Yeah, that's a big paradigm shift that it would take. And I've been wondering that myself. How can we go about just helping people understand that? And I think that's something that maybe they just need to keep hearing from nonprofits and from established nonprofits that they respect and have a relationship with, not just people banging on their door saying, we need money, give it to us. I had someone actually say, I've argued with this funder 3 times and 3 times they turned me down.
Yeah,
If you
perhaps
were arguing
arguing
with
Yeah,
them.
there's a different way to approach that than arguing with the funder.
Right.
And yeah, I see you're freezing a little bit there. That's why I paid extra to have internet. One time during this show, my internet failed, and I just I had 2 guests in here, and they were like, "Well, where did Rob go? Are we still live?" And so now I pay a pretty penny to have internet with something like 400 megabytes per second, so I don't have that problem. Okay, I'm going to go to Philip here. By the way, we're going to have a show now. We need a show, and we need to invite all the grant funders. So Teresa is coming back. I know, there she is. She's coming back in. And so, Teresa, we're going to have a show. We're going to invite every grant funder in the United States, have them come in here, and we'll tell them how they should do business. Okay.
There we go.
All right.
That works.
Philip here. Philip says a few years back. I lost Philip here. Okay, there it is. Philip says a few years back, we added a module to track volunteer hours with reporting because we were seeing that many grants were matching grants. Like 80-20%. Oh, there's a lot of 80-20 rules out here in fundraising. And they would allow volunteer hours to go toward the match. Is that still the case? Are many grants still matching, or are they 100% grants?
There's some of both. I see both. I see a lot of 100% grants, but there are still some matching grants out there. So it just depends on the situation.
We love matching grants. We love matching. And I'm going to be having a conversation where I'm on Maui, Hawaii, and we're going to be meeting with the Hawaii Community Foundation to talk about matching grants. And we've got a few nonprofits here on Maui that are clients. And so I'm facilitating a Zoom meeting with the Hawaii Community Foundation to ask that. And that's really the big question. They would love to dangle that carrot of that matching grant out there to inspire people. People are motivated by that, right? And usually I'm seeing it's individual donors. Individuals are providing a lot more of the matching gift, I guess we should say, than matching grants. And so that's a huge one. So when we get everybody together in this room and we tell all these grant funders how we want them to do business, that'll be on our list.
I'm sure they'll listen.
The whole thing should, by golly. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to look down here to see Victoria's got a question, and we're going to get to that in a second. If you're watching on Facebook and you're enjoying this, go hit that love button, hit the like button, hit the wow button. If we say anything wow worthy, let us know you're there. And if there's anybody watching on LinkedIn, let me know and say, put it in the chat and say, we are here on LinkedIn and it's working. Because I just had Philip, I think it was, say that the LinkedIn video is not working. And we had 50 people registered to watch this thing on LinkedIn. And if they're not able to watch it, that would suck. But we'll find a way for you 50 people. If it's not working on LinkedIn, we'll I don't know what we'll do. We'll figure a way to get you the replay. We do tape this. There is a replay that you can watch. All right. So still hoping and for our LinkedIn fans out there, but thank you, Facebook fans, for hitting that like button, hitting that love button. And asking your questions in here, because believe it or not, the algorithms of Facebook and YouTube and all these places, the more you like and the more you chat and the more comments, the more nonprofits are going to see this. The more people, Facebook says, wow, this might actually be good. Let's share this to more people. And then Teresa and I can help more nonprofits. And that's really, at the end of the day, that's our mission. All right. Victoria, Regina Gabaldon, I messed that all up. Maybe excuse me, Victoria, can you speak to how to best build a business to serve the nonprofit? The main purpose of the profit of the business is to serve its sister nonprofit. Mm-hmm. I don't know that this is a Teresa question, but if you want to jump in there and jump on that, what Victoria is asking, and there's a lot of, there's some, I'll give you an example, would be a hospital foundation that operates a gift shop. And their gift shop is I guess, a for-profit revenue source, and all the profits would go to the nonprofit. And so I think that is your question.
I saw this work well with a thrift store and a food pantry. And the thrift store, it was pretty much the only food pantry and thrift store in that community. And so people were very generous, doing lots of things to the thrift store, but they also shopped there a lot. And then that funded the food pantry side, and it funded a couple of staff. It funded a lot of the food purchasing, and it worked really well because it was established, it had a great reputation in the community, and it was just kind of a good operation back and forth, a good sister organization, like you said.
Yeah, and I think that's probably a common one. Auntie Helen's thrift in San Diego is a member of our Nonprofit Campaigns community, and she's always posting about they operate a thrift store, and it's just and then but they're also feeding the homeless, and they're taking it, and it's I don't know if it's not robbing Peter to pay Paul, but or the Robin Hood method or whatever you want to call it. It's a model that works. It's not a model that I teach or train. We're really what we teach or train here at Nonprofit Campaigns is for so many of you of the, I see so many questions coming into this group, so many questions all the time saying, help me get more grants, help me put on more special events. And we're here to say, there's like 16 other things we should be doing. And those are 2 of them, special events. Linda Lysakowski thinks that an organization, unless you're a super organization, shouldn't have more than 2 special events a year. I talked to a volunteer in our masterclass yesterday who's a volunteer board member putting those special events on, and they go, only one, because it's a tremendous amount of time and effort. And so, here at Nonprofit Campaigns, stick around, kids, because we're here to teach you the other everything else that's out there. It just so happens that you guys are all coming here because we're talking about grants, and everybody wants to know about grants. So hopefully we talked and answered that question well enough about building a business to support the nonprofit. And using the example of that hospital gift store, it just so happens everybody's coming in, they're going to go buy flowers or something, and that's kind of a no-brainer. The thrift store food pantry thing that Teresa mentioned is another one. And if anybody else is watching right now and you have more examples, go ahead and put them in there to help Victoria. She was on, Victoria says she was on LinkedIn, but thankfully Philip posted the Facebook video link there because there was no video. Wow. We're going to have to talk at LinkedIn. I was so excited about having all my 50 new LinkedIn people come to join the show. And according to this, it says we're streaming to LinkedIn, we're streaming to Facebook, and we're streaming to YouTube. And if you guys are watching on YouTube, by the way, you can't use the live chat feature. It doesn't work whatever you type in there. I got to go in there later. However, you could be sitting on your couch watching this on your living room TV and having a glass of wine and some hors d'oeuvres, and that's kind of cool. So that's where LinkedIn comes in. Patricia Franks said, hi, this is Patricia Franks here with Anointed Vessel Productions, and you're doing an excellent job. Thank you, Patricia Franks. You're doing an excellent job too. We would love to hear about Anointed Vessel nonprofit. You got to tell us what it is. My gosh, we've been doing this an hour. I just looked down and it's
time flies.
This an hour. I want to ask one question before we go. We're going to go just a tad bit over because I wasn't paying attention to the time. This happens every week. And then we're going to let you talk a little bit about how to get a hold of Teresa, because this is important, and we want you all to follow up. She does trainings. You do a podcast, right? Tell us about your podcast.
Yes, the podcast is called Grant Writing Simplified, And someone the other day said, simplified grant writing? It was like, yeah, it
That an
doesn't have to be.
Grant Writing Simplified?
I know. But it doesn't have to be as intimidating as it sounds. We break it down step by step. And I help grant writers, but also I help nonprofit leaders who want to grow and make a bigger impact. So whichever you are in that field, if you're wanting to learn grant writing and learn how to get into that, or if you are working with a nonprofit and want help growing, I interview a lot of great people. I do some solo episodes specifically on grant writing. So yeah, check that out. You can subscribe on any podcast player, iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts. And you can connect with me on LinkedIn or send me a message. I would love to hear from you. Go to my website, teresahuff.com, and there's a little voicemail button, or you can hit the contact form and send me a message. Let me know what your takeaways were and what you're working on next in your nonprofit. I'd love to hear.
Does it film live, or is it one of those you edit it and then it goes out to? You're not as dumb as me and just do this live with warts and everything, are you?
The podcast? Oh, yeah. I edit. I definitely edit.
Okay. I really suck at editing, so we just figured I'm just going to roll with it.
Yeah, I wasn't that brave to start out yet. Maybe someday I'll get to that point.
Maria Harrison jumped in here in the chat and said that she had the same situation as Victoria, that she was watching this on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is flubbed on us, and thankfully Philip Poston saved the day, and Philip put a link in there that said join us on Facebook, because LinkedIn failed us today, and I apologize. We'll go in there and figure out what happened on LinkedIn. Okay, I got one more question, and thanks for those of you are staying with us. We're going into overtime. One of the things we tell all of our clients, we're focused on in our masterclass next week. We're focused 100% on board development, and I like big boards. There's I like big boards, and I cannot lie. There's a song there somewhere that we're gonna create. And so when these nonprofits start, the law says you have to have 3 board members. Those aren't real board members. Those are people on a piece of paper. And then you go out, once you establish your nonprofit, then you go out and build a real board of directors. And we tell them all the time, I said, we talk about board giving, and that 100% of the board should give. And it doesn't matter what they give. I always preach, don't set minimum level of giving for board members, because minimums become maximums. And what we want is each board member to make a meaningful pledge, a meaningful gift to them personally. And what's $5,000 might be meaningful to one board member. $5 a month might be meaningful to another board member. And everybody's important, and we don't judge like that. Yes, Victoria, thank you. She's gonna help me write this. We're creating the song. I like big boards, and I cannot lie. Those other consultants can't deny.
Yep.
I can't believe I just did that. Anyhow, we tell them, if you're going to go out and write grants, they're not going to. Why would a foundation give to you if 100% of this board doesn't give? Talk to us about that. That issue.
I was a grant writer for several years before I was asked to serve on a nonprofit board of a startup nonprofit. And I served on that board for about 4 years, not as their grant writer, but just as a board member. And I learned so much about that. And we were kind of the same way. We wanted board members to give, but we didn't expect a certain dollar amount. I agree with you there. It's, our situations, our stages in life were very, very different for all the board members, but each board member brought a lot of value to the table. And we tried to really strategically choose board members that would be very complementary, with different skill sets, different personalities, different connections in the community. And so as a consultant, that was a really valuable experience to be a part of that. So I would encourage people, whatever you've been, if you've always been a director, but you've never served on a board, try plugging into a board, or vice versa. If you've always served on a board, but you've never volunteered, go be a volunteer for a while. Like, if you've never been in one of those roles, try it out for a while to get that experience, and it will totally shift your perspective on how nonprofits work and what it takes.
It sure does. I have been the nonprofit director. I've been the consultant for 25 years. I've been the board member where we actually hired Netzel and Associates, a consultant, to come in and do a capital campaign, because as a board member, you can't be your own consultant. Smart nonprofits are hiring consultants out there, and yeah, I've seen it all and been all of it, and it's important to see what life is on the other side. Okay, so Kimberly Barker's in the room. I said earlier that now that we're going on to overtime, I'm going to throw this thing out there. Kimberly is in the room. I said earlier we're going to do a video of her Fundual campaign. She is in the process of, we're going to be making this public and launching it live soon. Some people ask me, what is a Fundual campaign? And this is what we offer here at Nonprofit Campaigns as a virtual fundraising solution that has the ability to go viral on your social media. Once we get back out, done with this pandemic, we will always, for the rest of our lives, be adding a virtual component to our nonprofit fundraisers. Just because it's an excellent way to include a lot more people than the ones that can show up at live and in person. Having said that, I went out when I founded Nonprofit Campaigns here when this pandemic started, and I found that most of these virtual fundraising options suck. They're kind of boring. And so we partnered with Fundual to come up with one that was fun and exciting and competitive. And here's a quick video of our Fundual campaigns.
Fundual is a revolutionary gamified fundraising website. We use competition, challenges, live virtual events, and real-time online auctions to make fundraising fun and exciting. Sponsors love us because of how much we help grow their brand. How does it work? Instead of just asking donors to give directly to your cause, we turn it into a game. Donors give through a team that is raising money for your cause. The team that raises the most money wins. And the best part? All the money raised from each team goes to your cause. Sponsors will have their name and logo displayed on the campaign page. They can even sponsor a team. Anyone who donates will think of themselves as members of that team. What a great way to generate brand loyalty. If your fundraising is suffering because you can't hold your normal annual event, we've got you covered. Run your live event virtually right on your Fundual page. If your event includes an auction, you can hold it with a live auctioneer. Donors can bid directly through your Fundual page using their phones, tablets, or computers. Everything you need, all in one place. Visit us at fundual.com/start to set up your Fundual campaign today.
All right, so that is our Fundual campaign. Teresa's back. She missed the commercial, I think. She's having a few internet problems. But that is our Fundual campaign. Whoever's left here watching us, that is a great addition to your live special events. Also, here at Nonprofit Campaigns, we happen to have 13 online training courses. This is just one of them. This is the first one I did. It's called Intro to High Impact Campaigns, a guide to prepare for success. It's 2 hours of video with 50-page guidebook worth 1.75 CFRE points. We also have created a development plan that works from Linda Lysakowski, our trainer here, how to raise more money from your business community, build a dream team of volunteers. We got lots of cool online training courses. We offer this live forum on fundraising free to all of you on Facebook, YouTube, and sometimes LinkedIn if it works. And of course, our 6-week masterclass in October. We're going to be launching another 6-week masterclass to teach you everything you wanted to know about fundraising, create that fundraising plan in 2021 off with a bang, and slide into 2022, swinging for the fences. I saw one more comment in there, and I want to give Teresa a chance. Victoria Regina liked our song. She's going to help us write that song. Thank you. And yes, we have, if you're interested in that Fundual campaign, let me know. Regina says, thank you. I learned a lot. New Now Foundation. Our mission is to establish a sober tiny house community of, I remember this. I talked to you on LinkedIn or something like that. Of a sober tiny house community of creatives whose shared purpose is to foster the recovery of people, animals, and materials through encouragement, love, service, art, advocacy, reclaiming, recovering, repurposing is what we do. Wow, what a awesome mission, Victoria. Thank you. And thank you, Teresa, for being our guest today. We covered a lot of stuff. We could go for another hour, couldn't we?
I think we could, as long as you're going to sing now and then.
I will promise to sing, and maybe I'll get the ukulele out. We'll play a little ukulele since we're in Hawaii.
There we go.
Grant Writing Simplified, the podcast. You can watch it on teresahuff.com. If you have want to get a copy of this PDF that we were talking about today, make sure you get us your email. We will send you the PDF, and we will look forward to working with all of you guys, create fun fundraising campaigns. Fundraising should be fun, folks. If we're not having fun, we're doing it all wrong.
Right.
Whew. All right.
Thank
you, Teresa. That was a lot of fun.
I appreciate the invitation. Good to talk to you.
Yes, and we're going to do this again too. So we'll do Teresa 2.0, and we'll get into this, and we'll continue it on. Be sure to join our Facebook community, Nonprofit Campaigns Community Inspiring Fundraising Success. And we will return next week at the same bat time and the same bat channel for another edition of our live forum on fundraising. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of your day.